This video is about the Log Debug immediate window. It's the one that looks like a logbook on the toolbar. Let's click on it now to bring it up. Now the Log Debug immediate window is an extremely useful tool for testing out code and for analysis. It not only displays analog, digital messages and other data, it's also a way to get data into MakerPlot using your keyboard instead of a serial connection. And we'll do that with this line right here in a few moments. Now the first thing to do is to click the Clear Log button, which is here, just to clear out anything that happens to be there. We're fortunate in the fact that we didn't have any messages or error messages or whatever in our window here, but nevertheless, hit the Clear Log button every time you start with the Log Debug immediate window. All right, to see what we can do with the other checkbox selections, let's start by plotting some data. We'll use our 4-channel analog data and 8 channels of digital data to show what can be done. Just click on the Connect icon up here, click on the plot icon, and that should be it. Now let's bring back our Log Debug immediate window, and there we are. Okay, now that plotting has started, let's select the analog checkbox. With the scroll box checked, we can see that the analog stream is scrolling up the window. And by the way, this is exactly how the analog data is coming from our microcontroller, as really 4 sets of ASCII data separated by commas, and with a carriage return at the end of each line. This is just one thing that the Log Debug immediate window allows us to do, and that is see exactly what's coming in from our micro. This alone is a great debug tool in and of itself. All right, now let's uncheck the analog box and check the digital box. Now we see the digital channels coming in from the micro. As with all digital data, it's preceded by the percent symbol and followed by the requisite number of ones and zeros, 8 in this case. And again, each line is terminated with a carriage return, which is what our micro does. Okay, now let's recheck the analog box to see both analog and digital data together. As you can see, the data are coming in pretty fast, so there's hardly any way to actually see what's being output. So what we can do is uncheck both the analog and digital checkboxes to find out what's really happening. All right, now we can scroll up and down the area here and find out exactly what analog and digital data happen to come in. And it goes for quite a long ways. Basically, it's once again a log of the data that we just recorded. Okay, now let's just clear the log button to clear the log area again. The other checkboxes will make more sense once we get into macros and code, but they're there for the same basic purpose, and that is to show a blow-by-blow record of what MakerPlot is seeing in the input data stream because, and this is an important point, because more than just analog and digital data come through the data input stream. Instructions for objects like meters, switches, and LEDs also come through the same path. For example, when a switch is clicked, this comes through the data stream along with analog and digital data. Drawings, messages, and other comments come through the data stream as well. Here's a graphic that shows the many data paths coming into and out of MakerPlot. The Log Debug immediate window can display many of these particular paths. And while we can see what's coming into MakerPlot through this window, we can also send commands to it. So it's really a two-way window. Now, using the immediate or CLI window, which is right here, we can key in instructions directly. For example, Since we have data being plotted, we can duplicate the actions of some of the toolbar icons to affect that data. Now let's start by resetting the plot. Let's key in exclamation RSET and hit the Enter key. There, the plot was reset to time 0. Now notice the instruction exclamation RSET. It was preceded by an exclamation point, and this tells MakerPlot that this is an instruction. And this is exactly the same instruction used when you click the reset plot icon, the one up here with the pencil eraser. That when you click that, that's really only executing that one particular exclamation RSET instruction. All right, now let's turn the plot on and off. Let's get the Log Debug window up again. And let's start by keying in exclamation plot off followed by the Enter key. Now notice the plot stops but stays on the screen. Now we can start the plot again by keying in kind of the reverse, which is exclamation PLOT on followed by the Enter key. Okay, the plot started up all over again. All right, how about changing the X and Y axis? We'll just key in exclamation DBLA and hit the Enter key. And now we've actually doubled the y-axis from 0 to 250 to 0 to 500. How about the time axis? Let's double it. Let's do the same thing. Exclamation DBLT in this case for time, and hit the Enter key. And now our time is increased from 120 seconds to 240 seconds. Now we could do the same thing by halving, basically reducing the scales by 1/2. Let's do that. Let's key in something for the y-axis or analog plot, exclamation HLVA. Okay, now we're back to 0 to 250. Let's try exclamation HLVT. Okay, now we're back to 0 to 120 seconds again. Okay, now how about a message? Let's key in exclamation DBUG, hello world. Aha, there we are. Now our message appears in the log window above. Now these are just a very few of the things we can do with the Log Debug immediate window. There's also a terminal mode that you can communicate with your micro, and you can do that by clicking terminal mode here. This works just like a hyperterminal or any other generic terminal program. But let's get back to plot mode. Now click on the Dump Data Object button. And since we're plotting analog and digital data, you'll get an instantaneous capture of each of the analog channels and the digital channel all at once. We would also see objects like meters and switches if they were being processed at the same time. So this is another thing you can do with this particular window. And of course you can scroll it to look at what you've just done and so on. So it's quite a powerful little window device. Plus, of course, you can drop it down and see everything at once. Something that we should have done, but nevertheless, we wanted to show our plots at the same time too. So anyway, that's a small portion of what can be done with the Log Debug immediate window. And we'll get much more into using it later in our Learn video series.